VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Crosstalk. It's our News Roundup Friday, and so glad that you could join us. Our producer, Matthew Middlebrook, all set in his big, looks like about a 40-gallon cowboy hat here because it's a News Roundup Day. Glad you could join us, folks. There is so much that has happened and transpired in this past week. It is unbelievable. And we just want to share a glimpse of what's going on. There's no way we can possibly cover it through the extent of the broadcast here today. But I've got a pile of papers here, many inches thick. We'll get through as much as we can here today, but there's some breaking news that just came out from the state of Wisconsin appellate courts just a short time ago, not too many minutes ago, and many people have watched as the eyes of the nation have been on this state as Governor Scott Walker brought reform to the state of Wisconsin, something known as Act 10, that impacted the collective bargaining for state employees. And today, just a short time ago, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals upheld Act 10 in its entirety. For nearly 2 years, those opposing Act 10 have tried every angle to have it struck down and invalidated, said J.B. Van Hollen, the Attorney General for Wisconsin. He said, today's decision by the Seventh Circuit confirms what I have stated from the beginning, that Act 10 is constitutional. While there are no guarantees, it is my hope that this decision will pave the way for resolving any remaining challenges in a manner that supports the legislative decisions made by our elected officials. Governor Scott Walker issued a release here just within the last hour as well, saying today's court ruling is a victory for Wisconsin's taxpayers. He entered the office, folks, with a $3.6 billion budget deficit. And without increasing taxes, without massive public employee layoffs, and without cuts to programs like Medicaid, was able to erase that $3.6 billion budget deficit and actually brought a surplus to the state of Wisconsin. There was something else that came out just a short time ago that really caught my attention. I hope it catches your attention, too. It's on WND.com. A new study released by the U.S. Military Academy's Combating Terrorism Center, it's at West Point, is linking opposition to abortion and other fundamental positions to terrorism, and pro-life leaders say it's just a way to paint them in a negative way. The study is called Challenges from the Sidelines, Understanding America's Violent Far Right. That's the name of the report, folks. Challenges from the Sidelines, Understanding America's Violent Far Right, says the major far-right threats are from a racist white supremacy movement, an anti-federalist movement, and a fundamentalist movement. Author Ari Perliger cites anti-abortionists as an active threat for terrorist activity. Doesn't this sound like what we just saw in recent years from the Department of Homeland Security? The report comes from a center at the institution where men and women are trained to be Army officers. While the center's reports often address threats from al-Qaeda and other extremists, the latest work addresses the cross-section of America that authors perceive as the far right. It alleges that anti-federalists are those who have strong beliefs about the government, believing it to be corrupt and tyrannical, and those Americans who support individual freedoms and self-government. It claims that those who adopt the liberal philosophy are future-oriented, while conservatives are linked to the violence of the far right and live in the past. The authors wrote, quote, liberal worldviews are future or progressive-oriented. Conservative perspectives are more past-oriented and, in general, are interested in preserving the status quo. The far right represents a more extreme version of conservatism, as its political vision is usually justified by the aspiration to restore or preserve values and practices that are part of the idealized historical heritage of the nation. Another suspect group in this study are people who support the sovereignty of the United States. He concludes the anti-government movement is a recent phenomenon. He said the anti-federalist rationale is multifaceted, includes the beliefs that the American political system and its proxies were hijacked by external forces interested in promoting a new world order in which the United States will be absorbed into the United Nations or another version of global government. They also espouse strong convictions regarding the federal government, believing it to be corrupt and tyrannical, with a natural tendency to intrude on individuals' civil and constitutional rights. It says, finally, they support civil activism, individual freedoms, and self-government. Extremists in the anti-federalist movement direct most of their violence against the federal government and its proxies in law enforcement, the report says. Then he turned his attention to Christian fundamentalism and asserts a connection between all three of his subgroups, saying, unlike the movements discussed previously, the fundamentalist movement's militant and violent nature was relatively late to develop. For many years, the fundamentalist movement did not produce violent subgroups, but rather functioned as a source of intellectual inspiration and a moral justification for the violent activities and operations of ideologically related movements. Yeah, a new report, folks. They use the term far right 410 times in the 148-page document. You remember the Department of Homeland Security? They had codified in their internal language veterans and Christians as being the threat. Meanwhile, Muslims, well, no, they're all peaceful. Nothing more to see there. Combating Terrorism Center at West Point. They say that especially since 2007, there have been a dramatic rise in the number of attacks and violent plots originating from individuals and groups who self-identify with the far right of American politics. So they discuss and research different questions like, what are the main current characteristics of violence produced by the far right? What type of far right groups are more prone than others to engage in violence? How are characteristics of particular far right groups correlated with their tendency to engage in violence? What are the social and political factors associated with the level of far-right violence? Folks, this is ridiculous. This is from the Combating Terrorism Center at West Point. Here's their mission statement. I went online and found their mission statement. The Combating Terrorism Center serves as an important national resource that rigorously studies the terrorist threat and provides policy-relevant research while moving the boundaries of academic knowledge. There are distinguished scholars, international network of experts, and access to senior U.S. government leadership set it apart from any other like enterprise. As an institution, they say we embrace the unique responsibility to prepare cadets to think critically about the challenges they will face during war and peace. The center directs multiple graduate-level seminars on terrorism and counterterrorism and administers a minor in terrorism studies. So their teaching folks is say, watch out for the far right. Watch out for those who are anti-abortion. Their research program produces path-breaking analysis, they say, on the dynamic and evolving terrorist threat. And so they also advise, due to their unique position as the nexus of academia and practice, the center leverages its deep expertise to contribute to discrete advisory efforts for federal, state, and local governments, including strategic analysis, operational support, and organizational strategy design. You can rest assured there's going to be an uproar in regard to this report. Fundamentalist, extreme far right, often throughout this report. The far right being dangerous to the United States. No, Islam, no, that's religion of peace. Well, we saw what happened earlier this week. President Obama gave his big speech from the White House using little children at the White House to provide his new gun laws. He said the tragedy at Sandy Hook can never be overstated. Children died and teachers and staff died attempting to keep them safe. There are no words that can properly convey how senseless the loss of life was that fateful day in Connecticut. I agree, it was senseless. It was a fateful day. But folks, we have a man who's intent on seeing that children are murdered in the womb through his pro-abortion policies. Isn't he the one who voted in the Illinois Senate that if the consequence of a child who has attempted to be aborted actually lived through it? that the Born Alive Infant Act was to save the life of that child, and he was in opposition to it? He went on to quote from the Declaration of Independence and its establishment that people have an inalienable right to life, saying the most fundamental set of rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, fundamental rights that were denied to college students at Virginia Tech and high school students at Columbine and elementary school students in Newtown and kids on street corners in Chicago. Couldn't he have also said, and babies in the womb? He said, let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing for them and for this country that we love so much. Well, very interesting. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky says he plans to introduce a bill next week that will nullify anything the president does that smacks of legislation. He said several of those executive orders appear to be a case of Obama writing new law. Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, Fox News reports, sent a proposal to the city council to increase jail time for anyone who fails to report that their guns have been lost, stolen, or sold. So if somebody fails to notify the government that they sold their gun, they're saying jail time. His proposal made at last night's city council meeting was expected. It comes the day after the Cook County Board president introduced a new ordinance that calls for a $1,000 fine for anyone who does not report the loss, transfer, or theft of a firearm within 48 hours. Here's a Duluth News Tribune. On a day when President Obama was preparing a slate of proposals to stem gun violence, Pine County Sheriff Robin Cole said he would consider any new federal regulation on guns to be illegal and would refuse to carry it out. He said, we will not enforce that. Other county sheriffs have spoken up. Here's an Oregon sheriff to Joe Biden. This is Lynn County Sheriff Tim Miller. In a letter that was dated Monday, said politicians are attempting to exploit the deaths of innocent victims by supporting laws that would harm law-abiding Americans. The sheriff said he took an oath to support the Constitution. Laws preventing citizens from owning certain semi-automatic firearms and ammunition magazines would violate their rights. He said he will not enforce any new gun laws and consider it unconstitutional. Congressman Tim Huelskamp of Kansas said the Second Amendment is not negotiable. The right to bear arms is a right, despite President Obama's disdain for the Second Amendment and the Constitution's limits on his power. Congress must stand firm for the entirety of the Constitution, even if, but particularly so, when President Obama seeks to ignore his obligation to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Taking away the rights and abilities of law-abiding citizens to defend themselves is yet another display of the Obama administration's consolidation of power, he said. Meanwhile, folks, a new online video game is taking shots at the Second Amendment by enticing players to take headshots at their most hated National Rifle Association officials. New video game. There's more going on here, folks, and we're going to take a break and come back to cover some more stories here in Crosstalk. Later in the program, we'll give you opportunity to call in and make comment on these or other current event issues. You're listening to Crosstalk on this News Roundup Friday.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, creation researcher and scientist at the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, when we look in the newspaper, why do we see so many articles detailing the latest evolutionary findings?
Chris, newspapers are quite willing to publish anything that might hint toward evolution. But if you read the articles closely, you'll see that they really are rather empty. Maybe an animal or a fossil has been found that's a little bit different, but the differences are well within the known range of variation. But remember, variation and adaptation, that's not real evolution. Evolutionists like to put an evolution happy face on anything that's found, and so evolution is continually before the readers. But Chris, evolution simply didn't happen. It doesn't happen, and it can't happen. What did happen, back in Genesis, is creation.
To find out more about creation science, visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org.
This is our News Roundup Friday here today on Crosstalk as you're tuned in to the VCY American Network. Just gathering a number of stories from the week. By the way, Twyla Brace has been with us from the Citizens Council for Health Freedom. And she referred to this the 16th executive order that the president issued here this past week about not prohibiting doctors from asking their patients about guns in their homes. Saying it violates existing laws and should be stricken from the books and not upheld. According to the Patient Privacy and Affordable Care Act, Section 2714, she says, which deals with reporting, it clearly states no individual shall be required to disclose any information under any data collection activity, which would certainly include a conversation authorized under this or any amendment by it. Regarding the ownership or possession of a firearm or ammunition, the lawful use, possession, or storage of a firearm and ammunition. She said Executive Order number 16 is hypocritical. It pressures patients to respond to intrusive queries from doctors, while the Affordable Care Act clearly states that there is no way obligated to disclose such information. If doctors who are in a position of authority put patients in the position of having to refuse to answer the doctor's questions, it puts patients in an awkward position and damages the doctor-patient relationship, she said. Folks, I hope you are staying abreast of some of the things taking place in Egypt, some horrendous things that are going on in Egypt at this time. This one is from Fox News, indicating that the 15-year prison sentence given to a woman and her 7 children by an Egyptian court for converting to Christianity is a sign of things to come, according to alarmed human rights advocates who say the nation's Islamist government is bad news for Christians in the North African country. A criminal court in central Egypt meted out the shocking sentence last week. A woman who was raised a Christian converted to Islam when she married a Muslim 23 years ago. He later died. So this widow planned to convert her family back to Christianity in order to obtain an inheritance from her family. She sought the help of others in the registration office to process new identity cards between 2004 and 2006. But when the conversion came to light under the new regime of Morsi, she, her children, and even the clerks who processed the identity cards were all sentenced to prison. Samuel Tedros, a research fellow at Hudson Institute Center for Religious Freedom, said conversions like Nadia's have been common in the past, but said Egypt's new Sharia-based constitution is a real disaster in terms of religious freedom. The cases will increase in the future, he said. I will be much harder for people to return to Christianity. Bible teacher Michael Youssef has sent forth a plea by email for people to be remembering to pray for Christians in Egypt at this time as much persecution is being faced. Orly Tates, who has continued to file cases against or challenging the birth, citizenship, records, Social Security numbers, etc. of Barack Obama, sent forth a press release saying that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, John Roberts, has scheduled a case by attorney Orly Tates dealing with Barack Hussein Obama's use of forged IDs to be heard in conference before the full Supreme Court. We understand that that conference is scheduled for February 15th. It's a case that provides a mountain of evidence of Barack Obama using a last name not legally his, forged selective service application, forged long-form and short-form birth certificate, and a Connecticut Social Security number, which was never assigned to him, according to E-Verify. The case provides evidence of around 1.5 million invalid voter registrations in the state of California alone. So her case, that includes those items, is set to be heard, she reports, by a conference that's been scheduled by the Chief Justice, John Roberts, and we understand that's to take place on February the 15th. Well, next week, as the Senate convenes, Senator Harry Reid does intend to force a set of procedural changes that will break the body's longstanding policy on rule changes to attempt to alter Rule 22 of the U.S. Senate. Rule 22 guarantees every senator the right to speak on an issue, thus allowing a filibuster when needed. The filibuster is one of the most important vehicles a minority party has to oppose, delay, or even stop legislation. Right now, the Senate rules call for 60 votes to end debate, but if Harry Reid invokes what is called the nuclear option, a parliamentary sleight of hand, a simple majority will be able to end debate. By the way, this coming Monday on Crosstalk, constitutional attorney Matt Staver is scheduled to be with us as the inauguration takes place on Monday to take a look at the second term that is coming before us, looking at a number of issues. And the nuclear option here with Senator Reid is one of the issues on the docket there, but he'll be providing us an update on Obamacare. We'll be taking a look at the cabinet picks and many other things that will be on Monday's Crosstalk. Interesting on CNSnews.com, explaining why he had no choice but to demand an increase in the legal limit on the national debt. President Obama said at a Monday press conference that Congress orders him to spend money. He said, "This is a matter of Congress authorizing spending. They order me to spend. They tell me you need to fund our Defense Department at such and such a level. You need to send Social Security checks. You need to make sure you're paying to care for our veterans. They lay all this out for me because they have the spending power, and so I am required by law to go ahead and pay these bills. Congress, it's your fault." Incidentally, the White House has informed House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan this week it's going to miss their legal deadline for sending a budget to Congress. Again. LifeSiteNews.com. Interesting. After the chair of the Illinois State Republican Party called on his party's state senators to cast votes for same-sex marriage, members of the GO party leadership are calling for his resignation. Pat Brady defied the Republican Party's platform when he started making lobbying calls to his party senators to change their positions on same-sex marriage. Brady told the Daily Herald that he made the calls as a private citizen and not in his capacity as chairman. Members of the party leadership are outraged. The Obamacare legislation contains no safeguards to stop taxpayer funding of abortions or abortion businesses. Now, a Pennsylvania hospital has indicated it will stop delivering babies thanks to Obamacare. The Obamacare law is causing physicians to cut the number of patients they see or leave the practices entirely, resulting in problems like this one, reports LifeNews.com. A southwestern Pennsylvania hospital will stop delivering babies after March 31st because their obstetricians are either leaving or refocusing their practices, and because hospital officials believe they can't afford it based on projected reimbursement under looming federal health care reforms. The hospital delivered about 200 babies each year since they started their obstetrics program in 2005. Officials right now aren't sure how many jobs will be lost. Meanwhile, also under Obamacare, the Obama administration is still trying to enforce its abortion pill mandate against a Bible publisher, which filed a lawsuit against it. We're talking about Tyndale Publishers, and Obama administration's seeking to stand up to them. Meanwhile, Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius giving $1.5 billion in your money to 11 states to build their new health insurance exchanges. It appears that half the states will let the federal government do it, though, but the exchange establishment grants announced yesterday are going to California, Delaware, Iowa, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New York, North Carolina, Oregon, and Vermont. These states are working to implement the health care law, and we continue to support them as they build new affordable insurance marketplaces, said Secretary Sebelius. Starting in 2014, Americans in all states will have access to quality, affordable health insurance, and these grants are helping to make that a reality. Just don't go to the hospital in Pennsylvania to have the baby. Okay, this is also interesting from Breitbart. Attorney General Eric Holder, his Department of Justice, have asked a federal court to indefinitely delay a lawsuit brought by the watchdog group Judicial Watch. The lawsuit seeks the enforcement of open records requests relating to Operation Fast and Furious as required by law. The administration has refused to comply with Judicial Watch's FOIA request, and in mid-September, the group filed a lawsuit challenging Holder's denial. That lawsuit remains ongoing, but within the past week, President Barack Obama's administration filed what's called a motion to stay the suit. Such a motion is something that, if granted, would delay the lawsuit indefinitely. Hey, here's some bright news. North Dakota State University getting applause from pro-life advocates, ending its partnership with the Planned Parenthood abortion business. Assisted suicide is against Canadian federal law, a statute that applies throughout the country, but health care law is governed by the provinces. So Quebec is trying to redefine some suicides as a medical treatment, as a means to circumvent federal law. Disturbing news that is also coming forth from, this caught my attention. Deaf twins going blind are euthanized. Two deaf twin brothers in Belgium euthanized by their doctor after realizing that they were going blind and would be unable to see each other ever again. 45-year-old men legally put to death by lethal injection at the Brussels University Hospital in mid-December. The men who were born deaf had a cup of coffee, said goodbye to other family members before walking into the hospital room together to die, their doctor told Belgian television station. They were happy. It was a relief to see the end of their suffering. The end of their suffering? A northern Michigan county has blocked Planned Parenthood's request for a $12,000 grant. Some of you living in Traverse City, Michigan, listening to Crosstalk. One commissioner saying the organization is designed to kill babies. The Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners refused to forward the grant request to the local band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indian tribes. Hats off to you there. A new report from Americans United for Life that monitors changes to pro-life laws on abortion and bioethics and end-of-life issues has named Louisiana as the most pro-life state in the nation. Washington State came in at bottom of the list of the 50 states on abortion as they examine different laws and so on. Okay, let's see. Examiner reports that President Barack Obama's half-brother announced Sunday he's seeking election to the governorship in is it Siaya, Kenya? His older brother announced his candidacy as an independent candidate, holding to none of the establishment political parties in that African nation, which has experienced violence by Islamists against Christians. He and other Obama family members are Muslims and running for mayor in Kenya. Well, folks, we've got a number of issues here today, but we want to open our phone lines. If you'd like to comment on these, perhaps you want to comment on the 23 executive actions on gun violence reduction that was given by the president earlier in this week. Maybe you've got some concerns about this new report coming out from West Point regarding terrorism, the far right wing, or the right wing they use so many times throughout the report. Our number here to Crosstalk is 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829 is the number to Crosstalk, and certainly would welcome your comments. We are just a short time from a break, and I do want to share with you what's going on in Egypt as well as it relates to their president, Mohamed Morsi. And yes, the U.S. is still pledging funds and military equipment to go to Egypt. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk here on VCY America. If you'd like to comment on these stories or other current event happenings, our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829. This is Crosstalk.
The Bible tells us that no man knows the day or the hour of Christ's return, but we are told to be ready, to look for that blessed hope, and to occupy until he comes. The Bible characterizes what the last times would be like, and observing world conditions today, we know the Lord could return at any time. When Jesus' disciples asked, "What will be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world?" Jesus carefully explained what the world would be like. In the book, 40 Irrefutable Signs of the Last Generation, author Noah Hutchings takes a thought-provoking look at these signs of the last generation and the importance of being ready for the Lord's return. This book is the size of a workbook and features over 200 pages presenting 40 irrefutable signs of the last generation. One copy of this book is available for a donation of $20, and 2 copies are available for a donation of $35. To make your donation to VCY America, call 1-800-729-9829. That's 1-800-729-9829.
Oh, the little things that come out during the course of a week. But Fox News reported earlier this week, federal immigration agents, they were prepared to arrest an illegal immigrant and registered sex offender just days before the November elections, but were ordered by Washington to hold off after officials warned of significant interest from Congress and news organizations because the suspect was a volunteer intern for Senator Robert Menendez, according to internal agency documents provided to Congress. Homeland Security Department said last month when the AP, Associated Press, first disclosed the delay arrest of Luis Abraham Sanchez Zavaleta, the AP's reports, they said, was categorically false. Don't delay until don't arrest until after the election. Let me just mention this here too in regard to Egypt. Vic shared a program here recently about all the fighter jets, tanks going to Egypt, courtesy of you, the taxpayer. When is it to be delivered? I think it's early next week. You know, we sent a contingency of senators over to Egypt and to check out things, and they came back, said, no, we need to continue and give this aid to Egypt. Well, as OneNewsNow.com points out, since his swearing in as Egyptian president, the Muslim Brotherhood leader Mohammed Morsi has portrayed himself as a man standing for peace and liberty when it comes to Israel and America. That according to statements, though, that he made attacking Israel and the U.S. in interviews recorded in 2010, recently translated by the Middle East Media Research Institute. Being incriminated by his own words, Morsi made it quite clear that he has no desire to see peace in the Middle East between his neighbors to the north, Israel, condemning the Palestinian Authority as a creation of the Zionists and American enemies for their sole purpose of opposing the will of the Palestinian people. The Islamic leader further explained that any negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians are a waste of time and opportunities, arguing that Muslims and Arabs receive nothing from engaging with the descendants of apes and pigs. Quote, with many acknowledging the latter part of the statement as sounding eerily familiar with Adolf Hitler's disparagement of the Jews. Oh, sure, Mr. Morsi, we'll give you the tanks, we'll give you the fighter jets that you need. Taking your comments and issues here today in Crosstalk 800-733-9829. Let's begin in Michigan. Coco, go ahead, you're on the air.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for the job that you're doing with the program and to say that our prayers are with you.
Thank you.
And I hope that you continue your good work. Thank you.
Thank you for your call here today. And let me just remind you, folks, these stories that we carry, that should go without saying, but let me say it because it needs to be said. We need to be praying for our president. We need to be praying for our leaders, those who represent us in the Senate and the U.S. House, our governors. Folks, it's only going to be a changed heart that's going to bring about a changed nation. It begins with you. It begins with me. It begins within the church. Let's go to Champaign, Illinois. And Zoe, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, Jim. I just wanted to say that for years I was under the sway of being fooled by that whole left-right paradigm thing when you're talking about that so-called terrorism story.
Yeah.
And communism and Nazism really are the same thing. They're both socialism, and they're both totalitarianism, and they're both authoritarian, and they both prosecute thought crimes. And I think probably all of us would be guilty of thought crimes under those systems. And it's very sad to see our country moving in that direction, where you could be possibly down the road prosecuted for what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Even the name of the report, Challenges from the Sidelines, Understanding America's Violent Far Right. Mm-hmm. And just where they're going with this, I have not, again, the story just came out within the hour before Crosstalk here, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more information forthcoming pertaining to this, but it is rather troubling to see this report coming out from West Point, and they're training their cadets accordingly. I don't
pay any attention anymore to the whole right-left thing. I just believe the Bible, and I think we've been fooled into thinking that the right and left are different, and they're not.
Thank you, Zoe, for your comments today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. to Vero Beach, Florida. Sheila, you're on the air.
Thank you very much. I would like to know if that article that came out of the Institute at West Point has the approval of the commanding general there.
That's a good question. I don't have a ready answer for it. I do know about the center. You can do links to it or do a quick internet search on it. I don't know if the study has the support of the commander there at the center or not.
Do you know if it's part of the curriculum?
Well, part of their mission statement is that they say that they do teach as an institution. They embrace, their whole mission statement implies that not only do they teach, they research, and then they advise. So my understanding from this...
Advise.
Pardon?
Advise.
Well, advise is a third point. The first one is we teach. We teach. We embrace the unique responsibility to prepare the cadets to think critically about the challenges they will face during the war and peace. The center directs multiple graduate-level seminars on terrorism and counterterrorism and administers a minor in terrorism studies. So this is a book that's produced by the group. I can only believe that it's part of the teaching.
I have several generations of family members that are graduates of the academy, and I am so glad that they are no longer on this earth to hear this. They would be spinning.
I'm sure many are spinning today in regard to this.
That's what I mean. Oh, of the live ones, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your call here today. Check out the story, and again, there's no doubt many links. I'm not sure if you can download the entire report or not. They do have a synopsis of it on there. You can even read about the book itself right on their website there on Combating Terrorism Center at West Point, and get a synopsis of that very aspect. Okay, to Pensacola, Florida, and Michael, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Jim, how you doing?
Fine, thank you.
My question is, statement I want to make is this. You just read just a list of a litany of things that are wrong in America and the world. And, the Bible tells you us to pray about these things, and we pray about them and come against it, and they just seem to be occurring with just rapid obsession. Does prayer work anymore?
I'm sorry, you're rather muffled. I missed your last statement there, Michael.
I was wondering, does prayer really works anymore?
Does prayer work anymore? Absolutely it does. But we pray for God's will to be accomplished. We know His timetable is going to go forward here, Michael. We know that in the last days, as Paul wrote to Timothy, perilous times will come. We also we have seen prayer work. Yes, God is still in the prayer answering business here today, but we pray for His will to be accomplished, and we know that His ultimate plan is going to go forward, and certainly we do pray for truth and righteousness to prevail, and it will. Ultimately, it will prevail, Michael.
Okay, it just seems it's almost like it's hopelessness.
No, and it's not hopeless. Not at all. There's always hope, but it's found in Jesus Christ. Our hope is not going to come from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue by any means. It's not going to come through the legislative process. Our hope is in Christ, and certainly we are to be understanding of the times in which we live and to be effective as light, to be effective as salt, as we're told to in the book of Matthew. We need to understand what is going on. We need to wake up. We need to make sure our lives are cleaned up before the Lord, and to be that ambassador for Him. Thank you so much for your call here today. No, there indeed is hope. Life is not hopeless. That hope, though, is found in Jesus Christ. Our telephone number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829. Remember the prophet Jonah, who went about Nineveh, saying, "Yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be destroyed, yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be destroyed." The people were a very wicked people. When you research Nineveh, you find how gruesome it was, the death, the killings, the debauchery that was going on in Nineveh. Judgment was coming, but you know what? The people repented. The people turned, and God spared Nineveh as a result. Oh, they fell into wickedness again, was later destroyed. But who knows if we're not here for such a time as this? Let's go to Ruth Ann in Pembine, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
Yes. What I'm praying for is righteousness in this nation.
Yeah.
And the Lord's Prayer, deliver us from evil. Deliver us from the evil one. And we can let God do that however he so chooses, just to trust him to do it.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. Appreciate your call here today. To, let's see, Janine in Milwaukee, you're on the air. Hello, Janine? Hello? Okay, guess we lost her. 800-733-9829 is our telephone number here today to Crosstalk. Open Doors, which serves persecuted Christians nationwide, sent us a disturbing press release yesterday, and this is another reminder to be praying for the persecuted church. They have confirmed the death of 2 Christians in North Korea. According to the ministry that serves persecuted Christians worldwide, 1 Christian recently shot while he was on his way back to Bible training in China. The other one of North Korea's died in North Korea's notorious labor camps. Be praying for the persecuted church. There is so much that is going on, and we have seen, of course, what's taking place in Egypt right now, but many other countries experiencing persecution as well. 800-733-9829 is our number. If you tried to get on a bit ago and got busy lines, you'll be able to get through as you dial us now. Next to Ron in Milwaukee, you're on the air, Ron.
Yes, my question is, I'm just wondering why we as Christians should be against the banning of assault weapons.
What do you mean by an assault weapon, Ron?
Well, the high-power type weapons that they're trying to ban.
Such as? You mean one that would shoot multiple
bullets? The ones with the magazines that shoot so many rounds off.
Okay, so that's what makes it an assault weapon. The issue.
Well, I'm not really. I'm just trying to get some clarity on it.
Yeah, and you know what? We've recently done a program with Larry Pratt, even on this aspect of the biblical justification for self-defense, which is something that is so often been a part of this, where several of these, even with a high capacity, has preserved life, has preserved many individuals. I believe perhaps looking at a full program just on that topic. We've done many issues on gun control in that regard, but this country does have something known as a Constitution, and the Second Amendment seems to really point out the fact of the citizen's right to keep and bear arms. It is not just a military function, it's an individual citizen right taking place here as well. Thanks for your call. Janine in Milwaukee, I guess we have you back with us?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim, I dropped my phone.
Okay.
I just want to say a big amen to what you just said a little bit earlier about being salt and light in the world, and there's always hope, and God bless you, and you just summed it all up. And keep up the good work.
Thank you for your call here today. We are going to take a break. We're just seconds away, so I'm going to just wait till the next caller until after the break so that we don't get cut off in the midst here. But again, just a reminder, Matt Staver from Liberty Counsel will be on with us on Crosstalk, taking a look at the next several years here as far as what's going to be proposed legislatively, some of the issues going on, some of the picks for cabinet-level offices as well. So we'll be getting to some of those aspects here, too. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Many Christians here in America are wringing their hands over our presidential elections of 2012. But let me make it very clear. Election results do not change the fact that God is still in control. Our mission has not changed. We're to continue to preach the gospel and disciple fellow believers. Our mission on the day before the election was the Great Commission, and today it is still the Great Commission. If your life is largely committed to the culture war, then you will feel defeated by the re-election of President Obama. And well, you should, because your life is not going to have an eternal impact, and your focus is also not a good sign of your spiritual condition. However, if your life is committed to the defense and proclamation of the gospel and biblical discipleship, then you realize that our success is not defined by earthly elections, which have nothing to do with God's ultimate plan. Our main focus should be preaching the gospel to the lost, defending the gospel, and protecting the church from false teachers. And I hope that's your continued commitment, even in 2013.
Friends, be sure you listen to the terminology today that's coming out even with this issues pertaining to gun control. And Larry Pratt's website, gunowners.org, he's got an article near the top of his page, Let's Change the Terminology in Defending Our Gun Rights, and talks about the very aspect here of, we keep hearing about assault weapons. He's got a full article just dealing with that issue too. Let's clear up the terminology in this regard. He talks about real assault rifles are used by modern infantrymen and are capable of firing in a fully automated mode, but the semi-automatic assault weapons, quote, are not machine guns. And there's just a lot of information there. I just commend it to you at this point. We've had Larry with us several times, and I know we will be revisiting that issue here again. Let's see, our next caller is in, this would be West Milwaukee. John, go ahead. You're on the air. Hello, John. Okay, we lost John. Let's go to Doug in Ringgold, Georgia. You're on the air, Doug.
Okay. What kind of weapon was used in the Sandy Hook deal?
I'm sorry, I don't have that readily available to me. And
I didn't know it. Just of course,
my mind's not bringing it back to me right now.
Assault weapons they talk about. I retired from the fire department. Said, "Nigga, why don't they do away with assault screwdrivers?" You know, I answered several calls. People stuck with screwdrivers.
Yeah.
They're going to ban them.
Well, and the other point to that is that recently we carried the story about more people are killed with hammers and blunt object like baseball bats.
Right.
And do we hear calls for their restrictions?
They talk about that assault weapon thing. Those civilian versions, they don't have the metal in them like the government, the military does. It'll melt. Mm-hmm. They can't stand that. And besides, it's the round that you use that's the power. They can't get that through their heads. I can take a regular old shotgun shell and get a 2.5 and a 3 inch and put more powder in it. I'll have a more powerful shell.
Doug, appreciate your call, and maybe somebody can answer that question here quickly for us. Thank you for your call. Mike in Bayview, you're on the air.
Yeah, Jim, I just wanted to clear up. Everybody's talking about assault weapons and stuff, and they will not sell us, normal people, anything that fires like a machine gun. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's got 30 rounds in it. The pistols as well, they're semi-automatic. So every time you squeeze the trigger, a round will go off. It has nothing to do with what the military uses or a fully operative machine gun that can shoot the clip completely empty at one squeeze.
Yeah.
It's one round at a time. And that kid supposedly went in there, and we don't know what he used anyway, but he didn't go and order a gun from a gun store. He was too young in the first place. He shot and killed his mother supposedly to get the gun. So it doesn't matter. If they outlaw him, the bad guys are still going to be able to crash into somebody's house and get them. Somehow they're going to get them, hammer, knife, whatever. If they can't get guns, they're going to kill somebody with something else if that's what's in their mind. But the people are wrong when they think that a 30-round clip out of a AR anything or a it's a semi-automatic. It only fires one round at a time, or it's a special federal license that has to have that. And it costs you like $10,000 a year for that particular gun. People can't afford to have that. And they do completely do background checks on people when they buy their gun in the first place. So they got to get that straight. The pistols may have 15 rounds in the clip, but it's only going to fire one at a time. It's not a machine gun, and either are the rifles for the general public.
Well, as Larry Pratt points it out, they're defense weapons for people to defend their families, their country, the Constitution. He said in colonial times, the defense weapon of the day was a musket. Our forefathers used muskets and cannons to fight the British to secure our freedom. But it's a very interesting article, and it's titled "Let's Change the Terminology in Defending Our Gun Rights," saying these are not assault weapons.
Right, they are not. And if they're gonna ban semi-automatics, those are most of the majority of hunting rifles. With 5 rounds maximum, and you get 5 shots, one at a time. That's all they get. You don't generally use a AR-15 to go deer hunting. You usually use a 30-06 or something similar to that. But you're still going to have 5 rounds in that gun. You know? So I just thought I'd clear that up if somebody didn't know. They're not fully automatic.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Bye-bye now.
Bless you.
To Kelsey in Ohio, you're on the air.
Yeah, sir, I just wanted to tell you I appreciate all the information you're broadcasting out, and I want to let you know that other adult men like myself at work from sun up to sundown and in their local towns and everything, that's all we talk about is the shape of this country and the way it's going. And I read a little, I don't know, a one-liner from Einstein that said, worry not about the evil men who do evil things in this world. Worry about the ones who stand and do nothing. And it really hit home with a lot of my friends, and I'm telling you, we're just worried.
Causes us to pray and turn to the Lord, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is terrible. It's a mess. And the Sandy Hook thing, I watched on the internet. It says Sandy Hook hoax, and I can't imagine. I can't figure out if this thing was real or a scenario or what the heck it is. And a lot of people are baffled out here what is really going on with these scenarios of, you know, terrorist attacks and things, and then we find out evidence that these things could not even took place. You know, I don't know.
Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for taking time to call today. And again, we've got to be in prayer and for our leaders, and we as a nation, as individuals, as churches, as communities, need to turn back to the Lord. Let's go to Alan calling from Viborg, South Dakota. You're on the air, Alan.
Yes, I'm calling yesterday morning on the CBS Morning News Show. They interviewed Mayor Bloomberg of New York City, and he prefaced his remarks regarding gun control in the form that there were 33 people that were killed every day by handguns. I think probably it's also to bring to the fore that there are 38 children, babies, murdered every hour by abortion.
Yeah.
Now, why is he standing up for gun control when he's got a much more serious matter?
Yeah, matter of fact, I think it's close to 3,500 children a day are taken by the hands of an abortionist. And
average one every 94 seconds.
That's just Planned Parenthood alone. Just Planned Parenthood alone.
Just Planned Parenthood alone.
Yeah, 94 seconds. Thanks for joining us. We're out of time here today. And, folks, yes, we do need to be in prayer. Be praying for our president. Be praying for our leaders. We need to turn to the Lord. Repent of our sins as a nation to fully trust Him. But don't lose hope, folks. God's in control. And certainly His plan is not going to be thwarted. Have a good weekend. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.